In his 1968 novel 2001: A Space Odyssey, Arthur C. Clarke wrote about HAL 9000, a sentient artificial intelligence guiding a mission to Jupiter. At the time, an AI with genuine autonomy felt like a distant fantasy. But fast forward to the 21st century. NASA's Perseverance rover, which landed on Mars in February 2021, uses an AI system called Aegis. This system autonomously identifies rocks of scientific interest and fires a laser at them to analyze their composition. A science fiction concept from 1968 became a practical tool for interplanetary exploration. This shows how our speculative ideas about space sometimes touch on a future reality. Another one of these ideas is the zoo hypothesis. It's an attempt to answer the Fermi paradox, the question of why we haven't found any evidence of alien life when the universe should be full of it. The hypothesis suggests they are out there. They know about us, and they are deliberately hiding, observing us like we observe animals in a wildlife preserve. On the surface, it sounds comforting. It implies we're protected, but when you really think about it, the zoo hypothesis is not comforting at all. It is profoundly creepy. It suggests a power imbalance so vast, it redefines what it means to be human. Number 15, we are not their peers. We are their pets. A 2011 study in the journal Science found that domesticated silver foxes bred over just 50 years developed floppy ears, shorter snouts, and curlier tails, traits common in puppies. The only trait selected for was tameness. The keepers of these animals, humans, did not select for physical traits, yet the animal's very biology changed to suit our preferences for non-threatening companions. The Formosan clouded leopard was declared extinct in 2013 after no sightings since 1983, despite a massive 13-year camera trap survey. Its habitat was preserved, but the animal itself vanished. Its preservation was ultimately a failure of its keepers. In 1936, the last thylacine, or Tasmanian tiger, named Benjamin, died of exposure at the Hobart Zoo after being locked out of its sheltered sleeping quarters. Its keepers simply forgot. The core of the zoo hypothesis is a relationship, but it is not a relationship between equals. It is the relationship between a zookeeper and an animal, a biologist, and a specimen or a child and an ant farm. The power dynamic is absolute. We think of ourselves as the pinnacle of intelligence on this planet. We have split the atom, written symphonies, and walked on the moon. We are the subjects of our own history, the agents of our own destiny. The zoo hypothesis strips all of that away. In this scenario, our greatest achievements are akin to a chimp learning to use a stick to get termites. It might be interesting, it might be worth a notation in a logbook, but it does not make the chimp an equal. The creepiness starts here with this fundamental reclassification of our species. We are no longer thinkers, explorers, or artists. We are exhibits. Our entire civilization, with all its triumphs and tragedies, is reduced to interesting behavior. The love a mother has for her child, the sacrifice of a soldier, the genius of a scientist, all of it is just data. You know, it's the stuff happening inside the enclosure. The observers are not our future friends or partners in a galactic federation. They are something else entirely. They are a higher order of being, and we are, to them, life. Not intelligent life, not fellow sentience, just G1 life. A form of it. A particularly noisy and complicated form, perhaps, but still just a specimen. This perspective implies a complete lack of any meaningful communication. You do not negotiate with a tiger in a zoo. You do not ask for its consent before you build a new wall or change its feeding schedule. You might try to understand its behavior to keep it healthy and non-aggressive, but you do not treat it as a peer. Any attempt from the tiger to communicate, like a roar or a claw mark on the wall, is interpreted through the lens of animal behavior, not as an attempt at diplomatic discourse. So if we beam messages into space, as we have done since the Arecibo message in 1974, the zoo hypothesis suggests they are received not as a greeting from an equal, but as the chirping of a strange bird. It is noise. It is part of the exhibit's ambiance. It confirms we are active, but it does not grant us a seat at the table. This is a deep existential loneliness. It is not the loneliness of being alone in the universe. It is the loneliness of being in a crowded room where no one will speak to you and everyone is pretending you are not there. The worst part is the reason why they will not speak to you. It is not because they are shy or because they are afraid. It is because you are not worth speaking to. You are a lower form of being. Your thoughts are too simple, your emotions too primitive, your existence too fragile to warrant direct engagement. You are, in the bluntest terms, an animal. And that is a terrifying demotion for a species that has spent its entire history believing it was special. We might build starships one day and travel to other worlds only to find a sign written in a language we cannot comprehend that effectively says, "Do not tap on the glass." Number 14, our pain is part of the exhibit. The Stanley Milgram experiment conducted at Yale University in 1961 showed that 65% of participants were willing to administer what they believed were fatal electric shocks to another person simply because an authority figure told them to. The observers, the scientists, did not intervene to stop the participants' extreme stress and moral conflict. Observing the process was the point of the experiment. The Colosseum in Rome could hold an estimated 50,000 to 80,000 spectators. For centuries, they watched gladiatorial contests, animal hunts, and public executions as a form of entertainment. The suffering was not a byproduct of the event, it was the event itself. When white nose syndrome, a fungal disease, emerged in North American bats in 2006, it killed millions of them, in some places wiping out 90% to 100% of bat populations in caves. Biologists watched and documented this collapse for years, studying the pathogen and the bat's response, before any large-scale interventions were attempted. Observation often precedes action, if action comes at all. If we are an exhibit, then everything that happens within our enclosure is part of that exhibit. That includes our art, our science, our love, and our joy. It also includes our wars, our plagues, our famines, and our genocides. A truly detached observer, a cosmic zookeeper, would not necessarily see these things as good or bad. They would see them as behavior. The Black Death, which killed an estimated 30% to 60% of Europe's population between 1346 and 1351, would be a fascinating data point on population dynamics and societal response to biological crisis. World War I, with its 20 million deaths, would be a case study in industrial-scale intraspecies aggression. The Spanish flu of 1918, which infected a third of the world's population, would be a textbook example of a viral pandemic in a globally connected pre-antibiotic civilization. This is the second layer of creepiness. The zookeepers are not just watching us. They are watching us suffer, and they are doing nothing. We look to the heavens and ask for a sign, for help, for salvation. The zoo hypothesis suggests the heavens are looking back, taking notes, and letting events run their course. It reframes every tragedy in human history. It means that during our darkest moments, we were not alone. We were being monitored, the screams were recorded, the tears were analyzed, but no hand reached down to help. This is not a benevolent non-interference, it is a cold, clinical detachment. Think about a nature documentary. We watch a lion hunt a zebra, we might feel a pang of sympathy for the zebra, but we do not intervene. We understand that this is the natural order of things. The documentarian's job is to record, not to change the outcome. To the cosmic zookeepers, our wars might be no different from a conflict between two rival chimpanzee troops. Our struggle against a deadly virus might be the equivalent of a wildebeest herd trying to cross a crocodile-infested river. It is dramatic, it is interesting, but it is not their place to interfere. To do so would be to contaminate the data. It would spoil the exhibit. This transforms our history into a spectacle. Every prayer a starving child has ever uttered, every cry for help from a person in a war zone, has potentially echoed into the cosmos and been received by beings who chose to do nothing. They had the power to stop it. A civilization capable of interstellar travel and maintaining a perfect quarantine of an entire planet would surely have the technology to stop a plague or end a famine. They could have stopped the asteroid that wiped out the dinosaurs 66 million years ago. They could have stopped any number of human catastrophes. They chose not to. They chose to watch. This implies that our suffering has a purpose for them. It is educational or perhaps even entertaining. We are not just a zoo, we are a gladiator-style reality show, and our pain is part of the plot. The idea that all of our collective suffering has been silently observed by a passive, omnipotent audience is a profoundly disturbing thought. It means our worst nightmares are someone else's data. Number 13, the keepers might just be indifferent. The Arecibo message, broadcast into space in 1974, was aimed at the globular star cluster M13 some 25,000 light-years away. If a reply is ever sent, it will not reach us for 50,000 years. The timescales of our attempts at communication are vastly out of sync with the likely lifespans of civilizations or even species. The tardigrade, an 8-legged microanimal, can survive temperatures from 272 degrees Celsius to 150 degrees Celsius, massive doses of radiation, and the vacuum of space. Its resilience is a product of 500 million years of evolution. It does not care about humanity's existence. It simply endures. In 2007, a ship's anchor in the Mediterranean Sea dragged across the seafloor and severed 3 major underwater internet cables, cutting off 70% of Egypt's internet and significantly disrupting traffic in the Middle East and India. This was not a malicious act. It was an accident born of indifference and a lack of awareness of the complex system lying just below. We often assume that if advanced aliens are watching us, they are doing so with intent. They are scientists or philosophers or protectors. We assume they care. But what if they do not? What if the zoo hypothesis is correct, but the keepers are just lazy or bored? Or what if we are not the main exhibit, but just a small, forgotten terrarium in the corner of a much larger gallery? This is the creepiness of cosmic indifference. It is not malice. It is not even clinical detachment. It is the simple, soul-crushing possibility that we do not matter enough to be actively monitored. A civilization that is millions of years old might operate on timescales we cannot comprehend. To them, all of human history might be a brief flicker. A keeper might check in on Earth every 10,000 years. In that time, we went from hunting mammoths with spears to sending robots to Mars. To the keeper, it might be a barely noticeable change. Oh, the primates are using metal now. Interesting. I'll check back later. Our entire existence could be a long-running, low-priority experiment that most of the galactic community has forgotten about. This leads to the idea of a poorly managed zoo. In a real zoo, neglect can lead to disaster. Enclosures fall into disrepair, animals get sick, keepers make mistakes. What if our cosmic zoo is just as flawed? The prime directive of non-interference might not be a sacred ethical principle. It might just be a guideline that is frequently ignored. Maybe a stray probe from another exhibit crashed here in Roswell in 1947. Maybe a bored alien teenager occasionally zips through our atmosphere in a cloaked ship for fun. The UFO phenomena that are so debated might not be evidence of a grand, coordinated plan, but of a leaky cage and sloppy zookeeping. This is creepy because it removes the sense of order and safety that even a clinical zoo provides. A clinical zoo is sterile and predictable. A neglected zoo is dangerous and chaotic. We might be protected from major outside threats, but not from accidents. An asteroid that could wipe us out might be on their charts, scheduled for diversion in a few millennia. But someone forgets to file the paperwork. Someone spills a coffee on the console. And suddenly our world ends not because of malice, but because of a clerical error in an office 1,000 light years away. Furthermore, this indifference means there is no grand purpose to our observation. We are not being studied to answer the great questions of life and the universe. We are just there, like lichen on a rock. A scientist might study the lichen, but most people just walk past it. We might be a curiosity, but we are not a priority. This idea is almost more insulting than being a mere animal specimen. To be a specimen implies value, at least for scientific purposes. To be the subject of cosmic indifference means we have no value at all. We are just cosmic background noise. Our extinction would not be a tragedy. It would be a non-event, a cage that finally went quiet, freeing up space for a new exhibit. Number 12, we have no real consent. The Public Health Service Tuskegee study of untreated syphilis in the Negro male ran from 1932 to 1972. In it, 600 African American men were studied, 399 of whom had syphilis. The researchers never told the men they had the disease and never treated them for it, even after penicillin became the standard cure in 1947. The goal was to observe the full progression of the disease. The men did not give informed consent because they were never given the information. In the 1960s, the CIA's Project MKUltra subjected unwitting U.S. citizens to psychological experiments, including administering LSD to study mind control. Consent was not part of the protocol. When we study animal populations in the wild, we tag them, track them, and observe them without their permission. We justify this by saying they are not capable of giving consent, and that the research is for a greater good, such as conservation. The zoo hypothesis is a scenario of observation without consent on a planetary scale. We have not signed up for this. We have not been asked. Our entire species, all 8 billion of us, are subjects in a study we know nothing about. Every action we take, every private moment, every thought we express online is potentially being logged and analyzed by an unseen intelligence. This is the ultimate violation of privacy. There are no walls high enough, no encryption strong enough to keep them out. If they can hide an entire civilization from us, they can certainly bypass a Wi-Fi password. This is creepy because it undermines our sense of autonomy. We believe we are living our lives for ourselves. We make choices based on our own desires, ethics, and needs. But in the zoo scenario, our lives serve an additional purpose, one we did not agree to provide data for the observers. Our free will is still technically intact. We make our own choices but the context is radically different. It is like being a participant in a reality TV show without your knowledge. You think you are just living your life, but millions are watching, judging, and analyzing your every move. The concept of informed consent is a cornerstone of modern medical and research ethics. It states that a person must be given all the relevant information before they can agree to participate in a study. The zoo hypothesis violates this on every possible level. We are not informed. We do not know who the observers are, what their goals are, what the risks of the observation are, or how long it will last. We do not even know for certain that we are being observed. We are living in a state of complete ignorance about the most fundamental context of our existence. This also raises the question of what happens if we try to revoke consent. What if we as a species collectively decide we do not want to be watched anymore? How would we even signal this? We could broadcast messages saying, leave us alone. But as discussed before, this might be interpreted as interesting chirping. What if we become a technological threat to the observation? What if we develop technologies that can detect their observation platforms? Would they shut us down? Would they decommission the exhibit? Our lack of consent puts us in a powerless position. A lab rat cannot refuse to be part of an experiment. It can try to bite the researcher, but that will likely just result in a tighter cage or the termination of the experiment and the rat. The very act of reading these words, of thinking about this possibility, becomes part of the experiment. Our reaction to the zoo hypothesis is just another data point for the zookeepers. Are they amused by our paranoia? Do they find our philosophical dread quaint? The creepiness lies in this inescapable loop. There is no opting out. We were born into the enclosure. We will die in the enclosure. And we never ever had a say in the matter. Our entire existence is non-consensual. Number 11. The silence itself is a cage. The WOW signal was a strong, narrowband radio signal detected by Jerry Eman on August 15, 1977, while working on a SETI project at the Big Ear Radio Telescope of Ohio State University. The signal lasted for 72 seconds and has never been detected again. It is a singular, tantalizing hint in a sea of cosmic silence. The TRAPPIST-1 star system, discovered in 2017, has 7 Earth-sized planets, at least 3 of which are in the habitable zone. Despite intense observation, no signals of technology have been detected. The universe is 13.8 billion years old. Our solar system is 4.5 billion years old. Life on Earth began at least 3.5 billion years ago. Given these vast timescales, a technological civilization could have colonized the entire Milky Way galaxy in a few million years, a cosmic blink of an eye. Yet, we see and hear nothing. This is the essence of the Fermi paradox, the great unsettling silence. The zoo hypothesis proposes that the silence is deliberate. It is an artificial silence. The galaxy may be teeming with life and commerce and communication, but it is all happening behind a soundproof wall. We are in a quarantine zone. The silence is not a natural feature of the cosmos, it is an imposed condition. This is what makes it a cage. It is not just that we cannot see out, it is that they have deliberately blinded us. This is a profoundly creepy idea. It means that there is a universe of wonder and knowledge that we are being actively denied. Imagine being a member of an uncontacted tribe in the Amazon. You know only your village and the surrounding jungle. You do not know that just a few hundred miles away are cities with electricity, cars, and the internet. Your reality is a tiny fraction of the whole. The zoo hypothesis puts all of humanity in the position of that tribe. We look up at the night sky and feel a sense of wonder and mystery, but in this scenario, that mystery is a carefully constructed illusion. The sky is not empty. It has been emptied for our benefit, or at least for the benefit of the experiment. The cage is made of information, or rather, the lack of it. A civilization just 1,000 years more advanced than us would be like magic. A civilization 1,000,000 years more advanced would be indistinguishable from a god. They would have solved problems. We are currently struggling with disease, aging, energy, war. They would have answers to the fundamental questions of physics and philosophy. All of that knowledge exists, but it is being kept from us. We are being forced to reinvent the wheel over and over again while the rest of the universe drives starships. This also creates a kind of developmental prison. Our growth as a species is limited by this isolation. We can only progress so far on our own. Perhaps there are certain technological or social hurdles that are almost impossible to overcome without guidance. The Great Filter theory suggests that there is some step in the development of life that is so difficult to pass that it stops most civilizations from becoming interstellar. What if the zookeepers know what this filter is? What if they are watching us approach it, curious to see if we will make it past this time? They watch us struggle with climate change, nuclear proliferation, and artificial intelligence, treating it as a final exam that most species fail. The silence also fosters a dangerous arrogance. Because we hear nothing, we assume we are the most advanced life form around. We call ourselves intelligent and act as the masters of our world. This cosmic hubris is a direct result of the cage. We are like a child who, having beaten all his friends at a board game, declares himself the greatest player in the world, unaware that the grandmasters even exist. This ignorance could be our undoing. We might take actions like detonating nuclear weapons or experimenting with high-energy physics. That could be catastrophic, precisely because we do not know any better. The silence is not just a cage, it is a padded cell designed to keep us from hurting ourselves, but also to keep us from ever truly growing up. Number 10, we are a science experiment without a control group. Between 1950 and 1952, the U.S. Navy sprayed clouds of the bacteria Serratia marcescens over the San Francisco Bay Area to test the feasibility of a biological weapon attack. The public was not informed they were part of this experiment. One hospital noted a spike in pneumonia cases, and at least one death was attributed to the test. In the 1940s, scientists at the University of Iowa conducted the monster study, in which they subjected 22 orphan children to either positive or negative speech therapy. Those in the negative group were belittled for every speech imperfection, and some suffered lifelong psychological and speech problems as a result. The study was concealed for decades. The Biosphere 2 project, which began in 1991 in Arizona, attempted to create a closed, self-sustaining ecological system. The 8 participants inside faced dropping oxygen levels, food shortages, and psychological stress. The experiment was a struggle, and it highlighted the immense difficulty of replicating a planetary environment. The zoo hypothesis can be interpreted in a more sinister way than simple observation. We may not just be an exhibit, we may be an experiment. Our entire planet could be a laboratory. And if we are an experiment, there must be a hypothesis being tested. What could it be? Perhaps the experiment is, can a carbon-based intelligence on a water world with a single moon develop a stable global civilization before it self-destructs? Or maybe it is something more specific. How does the development of religion affect the adoption of scientific principles? Or what is the effect of a 24-hour day-night cycle on the evolution of philosophy? This is creepy because it gives our existence an artificial and manipulative purpose. We are not just living, we are performing. Our struggles are not just our own, they are data points in someone else's research paper. This raises the question of manipulation. A good scientist tries not to contaminate their experiment, but sometimes subtle intervention is necessary. Have the keepers been subtly manipulating our history to keep the experiment on track? Was the rise of certain religions or philosophies a natural development, or was it nudged along by a research assistant? Was the discovery of penicillin an accident, or was it a carefully placed hint to prevent the experiment from ending prematurely due to disease? This is the ultimate conspiracy theory. All of human history has been secretly directed. This idea destroys our sense of accomplishment. Every breakthrough, every work of art, every act of human genius becomes suspect. Was it really ours, or were we just following a script? We are no longer the authors of our own story. We are the subjects of it, and the authors are the ones in the lab coats. The lack of a control group makes it even more unsettling. In a proper scientific study, you have a control group to compare your results against. Is there another Earth out there? A control Earth where things are slightly different? Maybe on that Earth, the dinosaurs never went extinct. Maybe on another, humanity developed without religion. Are we just one of many Earths being run simultaneously in a massive galactic scale research project? This reduces our planet and our species to a single trial in a much larger experiment. We are not special. We are sample A. And what happens when the experiment is over? In science, when a study is complete, the researchers publish their findings and the experiment is dismantled. The lab rats are either euthanized or used for another study. If the humanity experiment reaches its conclusion, what happens to us? If we succeed by not blowing ourselves up, for example, do we get a reward? Are we uplifted and invited into the galactic community, or what if we fail? Does the experiment get terminated? A scientist might flood a petri dish with bleach to sterilize it for the next culture. The end of our experiment could be just as unceremonious. A carefully aimed asteroid, a precisely targeted solar flare, or a tailored virus could wipe the slate clean, ready for humanity experiment 2.0. The idea that our entire civilization could be summarily executed because we produced a null result is a chilling one. Number 9. Our gods might just be bored graduate students. In the massively multiplayer online game EV Online, which launched in 2003, players have formed corporations, fought massive wars involving thousands of real-world participants, and developed complex economic and political systems. The game's developers, CCP Games, can and occasionally do intervene, but mostly they just watch their complex society unfold. The Sims, a life simulation game first released in 2000, allows players to control the lives of virtual people known as Sims. Players can guide them, build their houses, or inflict bizarre tragedies upon them for their own amusement, like removing the ladder from a swimming pool. In 1997, a project at the University of Texas, Austin called Tierra created digital organisms that could self-replicate and evolve within a computer's memory. The creator, Thomas S. Ray, set the initial conditions, but then largely just observed the digital evolution that followed, including the emergence of parasites and other complex behaviors. This analogy takes the experiment idea and makes it more personal and perhaps even more insulting. Or what if the beings observing us are not some wise ancient council of elders? What if they are not serious scientists conducting a grand experiment? What if the entity running the Earth simulation is just a kid, or a bored graduate student in a discipline we cannot even imagine, running a historical simulation for their thesis? This is the creepiness of being someone else's hobby. Our existence in this scenario has no grand cosmic purpose. It is not about answering the ultimate questions. It is about passing a class, or about staving off boredom on a rainy afternoon. All of our pain, our joy, our history, our future, it is all just content for someone else's entertainment or academic credit. The great wars that defined nations were just exciting plot points. The plagues that wiped out millions were just unexpected system dynamics. The love stories that inspired poets were just emergent character arcs. This perspective is deeply demeaning. It is one thing to be a lab rat for a noble scientific cause. It is another thing to be a Tamagotchi. It implies that our observers are not necessarily wise, moral, or even particularly competent. A graduate student might accidentally delete the simulation folder. A kid might get bored of the Earth game and move on to a new one, leaving us running on an old server in the basement, forgotten. The simulation could start to glitch and there would be no one around to fix it. The laws of physics might start to fray at the edges. This also reframes the idea of miracles and divine intervention. A miracle might just be the user of the simulation editing a few lines of code. Curing a disease, parting a sea, making it rain. These would be trivial actions for the programmer. The gods that humanity has worshipped for millennia might just be the player character's avatar or the user's mouse pointer invisibly nudging events. We have spent eons building cathedrals and fighting holy wars over what might amount to someone messing with the game's settings. This scenario is also terrifying because of the potential for casual cruelty. Think of how people treat characters in video games. They might create a perfect, happy family in The Sims, or they might trap them in a room with no doors and see what happens. If our reality is a simulation for someone else's amusement, then they might inflict suffering on us for no reason other than curiosity. I wonder what would happen if I suddenly tripled the carbon dioxide in their atmosphere. Let's see how they react to a sudden, inexplicable magnetic pole reversal. There are no ethics in a single-player game. There are no consequences for the player. If they are the programmers of our reality, then we are subject to their whims. They are our gods, but they are not benevolent. They are just bored. Number 8. The prime directive is a lie. Operation Mockingbird was an alleged large-scale program of the CIA that began in the early 1950s to manipulate domestic and foreign news media for propaganda purposes. The principle was non-interference in the press, but the reality was covert influence. During the Cold War, both the United States and the Soviet Union covertly intervened in the politics of numerous countries around the world, supporting coups, funding political parties, and spreading disinformation, all while publicly claiming to respect national sovereignty. The principle of anthropological research is to observe a culture without influencing it. However, the very presence of an anthropologist can change the behavior of the people being studied, a phenomenon known as the Hawthorne effect. True non-interference is almost impossible. The zoo hypothesis often comes with a comforting addendum, the prime directive. This is the idea popularized by Star Trek that the observers have a strict ethical code of non-interference with developing cultures. They watch, but they do not touch. This is meant to reassure us, to frame the keepers as wise and ethical. But what if it is a lie? What if the prime directive is just a public relations statement, a guideline that is regularly bent or broken when it suits the observer's needs? The creepiness here is in the deception. We are not just being observed, we are being managed. The keepers are not passive. They are active gardeners, pruning and shaping our civilization to grow in a direction they prefer. This is a far more intimate and violating form of control. It means that the zookeepers have their hands in everything. Consider our history. It is full of pivotal moments, strange coincidences, and figures who seem to rise from nowhere to change the world. Under the leaky zoo or manipulative keepers model, these events become suspect. Was a key scientific discovery a moment of human genius, or was the idea subtly planted in the right mind at the right time? Was a charismatic leader who averted a global war a product of their time, or were they groomed and guided by an unseen hand? Was a devastating plague a natural occurrence, or was it a deliberate cull to keep our population in check, or push our society in a new direction? This is a deeper level of paranoia than the experiment scenario. In an experiment, the goal is to observe a natural outcome. In a managed garden, the goal is to produce a specific result. This implies the keepers have a desired endpoint for humanity. They are trying to create something. We are not just a specimen, we are a project. We are raw material. This also means they are making value judgments about our culture. They are deciding which parts of our civilization should flourish and which should be stamped out. They might see our warlike tendencies as a problem and subtly guide us toward global cooperation. Or, more sinisterly, they might see our aggression as a valuable trait and secretly encourage conflicts to strepen the herd. They could be acting as our secret gods, rewarding the behaviors they like and punishing the ones they do not. We think we are building our own future, but we are actually following a blueprint designed by an alien architect. The lie of the prime directive is also dangerous. It lulls us into a false sense of security. If we believe we are protected by a rule of non-interference, we might not be on the lookout for subtle signs of manipulation. We would dismiss anomalies and strange events as mere coincidence. The perfect camouflage for a manipulator is the belief that they do not exist or that they have sworn not to act. The lie is the most important tool of control. By pretending to be passive observers, they gain our unwitting compliance. We are puppets who do not know we have strings, and so we dance willingly for the puppet master. Number 7, they could be culling us without our knowledge. In 2013, a program in Australia aimed to cull up to 10,000 feral camels using sharpshooters and helicopters. The camels, an invasive species, were consuming too much water and damaging the ecosystem. The cull was seen as a necessary act of environmental management. Every year, wildlife managers use controlled hunts and culls to manage deer populations in many parts of North America. Without natural predators, the deer population can explode, leading to starvation and the destruction of forests. The managers are not motivated by malice toward deer. They are managing a system. The Great Emu War of 1932 in Australia saw soldiers armed with machine guns deployed to cull a population of 20,000 emus that were damaging crops. The effort was largely a failure, but the intent was to reduce a population for economic reasons. This is one of the darkest and most visceral reasons the zoo hypothesis is creepy. If we are an exhibit, the keepers are responsible for managing the enclosure. And as any zookeeper or wildlife manager knows, population management is a key part of the job. Sometimes that means culling. The observers might not be malevolent, they may even be fond of us in a detached way. But if our population grows too large, if we start to damage our enclosure, the Earth's biosphere too much, or if our behavior becomes too unstable, they might decide that a cull is necessary. This would not look like an alien invasion with flying saucers and laser beams. That would be a blatant violation of the non-interference principle. It would be subtle, it would look natural, it would be a new, unusually deadly virus that appears out of nowhere and then vanishes just as mysteriously after it has done its job. It would be a series of natural disasters, earthquakes, tsunamis, volcanic eruptions, triggered with precision technology we cannot detect. It could even be social manipulation, subtly stoking the flames of a regional conflict until it erupts into a devastating war that sets our population and technology back by a century. The creepiness is that we would never know. We would mourn our dead, write books about the Great Plague or the Tragic War, and see it as another chapter in humanity's struggle against nature and itself. We would blame viruses, geology, or human folly. We would never suspect that our losses were the result of a deliberate, calculated act of cosmic wildlife management. Every major catastrophe in human history becomes a potential culling event. Was the Black Death a random mutation, or was it a carefully designed pathogen introduced to an overcrowded medieval Europe? Was the near extinction of humanity after the Toba supervolcano eruption 75,000 years ago a natural event, or was it a reset for a promising primate species that was heading in the wrong direction? This means we have no ultimate control over our own survival. We could do everything right. We could solve climate change, achieve world peace, and become responsible stewards of our planet. But if we exceed some arbitrary population number set by the keepers, or if our technology advances in a way they deem dangerous, they could trim us back without a second thought. We are livestock. We are valued for the herd, not for the individual. This also changes our relationship with death. We see death as a personal tragedy, a natural process, or the result of an accident or violence. The culling hypothesis adds a fourth category: death by administration. Millions of people could die not for any grand reason, but because they were a statistical overage. They were a line item in a management plan. This is a level of dehumanization that is almost impossible to comprehend. Our lives and deaths are not our own. They are subject to the decisions of a cosmic game warden who is just trying to keep the park tidy. Number 6, our reality might be artificially contained. The Truman Show is a 1998 film in which a man's entire life takes place inside a massive, constructed television studio, and he is unaware that he is the star of a 24/7 reality show. The sky is a painted dome, the people are actors, his reality is a complete fabrication. In Plato's allegory of the cave, prisoners are chained in a cave, facing a blank wall, or they watch shadows projected on the wall by things passing in front of a fire behind them. The shadows are the prisoner's reality, but not the actual reality. A Dyson sphere is a hypothetical megastructure that an advanced civilization could build to completely encompass a star and capture all of its energy output. From the outside, the star would disappear. From the inside, the sky would be the interior of the sphere. The zoo hypothesis usually assumes we are on our natural planet and the cage is one of information and distance. But a more extreme and creepy version is that our entire reality is a construct. We are not just in a zoo, we are in a terrarium. Our planet might be real, but it could be encased in a structure that projects a fake universe around us. The stars we see at night might not be real, they could be pinpricks of light on a vast black screen, a cosmic planetarium designed to keep us from seeing the bustling, populated galaxy that lies just beyond the walls. This idea is creepy because it means our most profound experiences of wonder are based on a lie. When we look up at the Milky Way, we feel a sense of scale, of our own smallness in a vast, ancient universe. That feeling is a cornerstone of science, philosophy, and religion, but if the sky is a projection, that feeling is an illusion. The wonder is manufactured. We are not looking out into the cosmos, we are looking at the wallpaper in our cage. This containment could be physical. Our solar system might be surrounded by a massive shield or a field that prevents us from leaving and prevents others from getting in. Any probe we send out, like the Voyager probes launched in 1977, might hit a wall and be destroyed or simply stop transmitting, and we would assume it just failed. Any attempt to build a starship and travel to another star would be doomed to fail, crashing against an invisible barrier at the edge of the solar system. We would be like fish in a bowl, able to see the room outside but never able to reach it. The containment could also be informational. Perhaps the speed of light is not a true cosmic speed limit. Perhaps it is a local law of physics imposed on our section of space, like a governor on an engine. It prevents us from ever reaching the stars in a reasonable amount of time, effectively locking us in our solar system. The Keepers could have designed the physics of our local bubble to be particularly challenging for space travel, ensuring we stay put. This creates an ultimate, inescapable prison. We are not just confined by our technology or our biology, we are confined by the very fabric of our reality, which has been tailored to keep us in. This also means the Keepers have a level of technological power that is truly godlike. To build a structure around an entire solar system and project a fake universe is a feat of engineering so advanced it is indistinguishable from magic. It makes the power imbalance between us and them not just vast, but infinite. If we are in a constructed reality, then everything we think we know about the universe is wrong. The Big Bang, the expansion of the universe, distant galaxies, all of it could be part of the simulation, the backstory written for the inhabitants of the terrarium. We are scholars studying a work of fiction, believing it to be a history book. There is no possibility of discovering the truth on our own, because all of our instruments and all of our senses are confined within the lie. The only way out is if the Keepers decide to open the door. Number 5, we can't see the bars, but they are there. The panopticon is a type of institutional building designed by the English philosopher Jeremy Bentham in the late 18th century. The concept of the design is to allow all inmates of an institution to be observed by a single watchman without the inmates being able to tell whether or not they are being watched. This creates a sense of constant, invisible surveillance which forces the prisoners to regulate their own behavior. In modern society, we are surrounded by CCTV cameras. Our online activity is tracked, and our location is monitored by our phones. The surveillance is often subtle or invisible, but it creates a framework of control. A Faraday cage is an enclosure used to block electromagnetic fields. You can be inside one and not see it, but it will completely prevent you from receiving a cell phone signal. The barrier is invisible, but absolute. The zoo hypothesis suggests a cage. But it is not a cage of iron bars and concrete walls. It is a cage of perfect, invisible control. The bars are not physical objects, they are a set of rules and technologies we cannot perceive. This is the creepiness of the perfect prison. It is a prison where the inmates do not even know they are incarcerated. We believe we are free, but that freedom is an illusion, carefully managed by our keepers. The bars in this cage could be technological. They might have a technology that can subtly influence our thoughts, discouraging lines of inquiry that might lead us to discover them. If a scientist gets too close to a forbidden area of physics, they might suddenly lose interest, feel a sense of dread, or find their funding mysteriously cut. This would not be overt mind control, but a gentle, invisible nudging that keeps our science and philosophy within safe boundaries. The bar is a mental block we mistake for our own lack of inspiration. The bars could be biological. Perhaps our DNA was subtly edited long ago to limit our intelligence, our lifespan, or our psychic potential. Maybe humans once had abilities we can now only dream of, but they were nerfed by the keepers to make us more manageable. We are a domesticated species, bred to be docile and predictable, and the bars are written into our very genes. The bars could also be social. The keepers could use their advanced technology to subtly manipulate our media and culture, promoting division, distraction, and consumerism. A population that is constantly fighting with itself and obsessed with trivialities is not going to have the focus or resources to build starships. They keep us in a state of perpetual adolescence as a species, never quite able to achieve the unity and maturity needed to join the galactic community. The nightly news, the latest social media trend, the political outrage of the day, all of these could be the bars of our cage, designed to keep our attention focused inward, away from the sky. The most unsettling aspect of this invisible cage is that we enforce our own imprisonment. Because we do not see the bars, we believe anyone who claims they exist is crazy. The keepers do not need to silence a whistleblower who gets too close to the truth. Society will do it for them. The person will be dismissed as a conspiracy theorist, a crank, or a madman. The inmates become the guards, shouting down anyone who points out that the walls are not real. This is the genius of the Panopticon design. The control is internalized. We keep ourselves in line because we believe we are free, and that this is the only reality there is. Our own skepticism, our own rationality becomes the strongest lock on our own cage door. Number 4, progress is an illusion they permit. The cargo cults of the Pacific Islands emerged after World War II. During the war, islanders saw military forces arrive with vast amounts of manufactured goods cargo. After the war, when the forces left, the islanders began to perform rituals like building mock airstrips and imitation airplanes out of wood, hoping to attract the cargo to return. They saw the result, the arrival of goods, but did not understand the underlying industrial and logistical process. They mistook correlation for causation. Potemkin villages were, according to legend, fake portable villages built in the Crimea in 1787 by Grigory Potemkin to fool Empress Catherine II during her journey to the region, making her think the area was more prosperous than it was. The term has come to mean any construction built solely to deceive others into thinking a situation is better than it is. The zoo hypothesis allows for a particularly cruel form of manipulation. Our sense of progress might be a complete illusion, a curated experience permitted by our keepers. We think we are discovering the laws of the universe and building our own technology, but we are actually like toddlers being allowed to discover blocks that have been placed directly in front of us. This is the creepiness of permitted progress. Our greatest achievements are not our own. They are gifts handed down to us when the keepers decide we are ready. In this scenario, our entire technological history is managed. The discovery of fire, the invention of agriculture, the industrial revolution, the atomic age, the information age, none of these were inevitable products of human ingenuity. They were tech tree unlocks that the keepers allowed at specific times. They could have kept us in the Stone Age forever if they had wanted to. They could give us interstellar travel tomorrow. They are just pacing our development according to their own schedule and for their own purposes. This reframes our greatest heroes of science and invention. Newton, Einstein, Curie, were they true geniuses who saw further than others, or were they simply the chosen recipients of the next clue? Their moments of brilliant insight might have been moments of subtle, targeted inspiration beamed into their minds by the keepers. We celebrate them as pioneers, but they may have been just messengers delivering knowledge from a higher source without even realizing it. This is profoundly disempowering. It means that we have no real agency in our own development. We are not forging our own path. We are following a pre-planned curriculum. And if we try to skip ahead or go down a forbidden path of research, the information simply is not available. The universe would appear to forbid it. We might try for centuries to develop a certain technology, like faster than light travel, and always fail, concluding that it is impossible according to the laws of physics. But the real reason is that the keepers have not unlocked that level for us yet. The laws of physics we perceive are the laws they permit us to perceive. This also means that our progress could be stopped at any moment. If we develop a technology that the keepers deem too dangerous or that threatens their observation, they could simply shut it down. This could be done in a variety of ways. They could trigger a global catastrophe that resets our civilization. They could subtly introduce flaws into our scientific theories, leading us down dead ends for centuries. Or they could simply stop giving us clues, leaving us to stagnate at our current level of technology forever. The illusion of progress is a powerful tool of control. As long as we believe we are moving forward, we are happy and motivated. We feel a sense of purpose and achievement, but it is all a Potemkin village. We are celebrating our ability to build a wooden airplane, hoping it will bring us the real cargo, not realizing that the real airplanes are just beyond the hill, hidden from view, and will only land when the keepers decide it is time for the next lesson. Number 3, what if the zoo is poorly managed? The Chernobyl disaster of April 26, 1986, was the result of a flawed reactor design and serious mistakes made by the plant operators. It was a catastrophic failure of a complex system due to human error and negligence. The Deepwater Horizon oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico in 2010 was caused by a cascade of failures, cost-cutting measures, and poor management, leading to the largest marine oil spill in history. The Central African nation of Mobutu Sese Seko's Zaire, now the Democratic Republic of Congo from 1965 to 1997, is a classic example of a kleptocracy, a state run by corrupt leaders whose main goal is personal enrichment. The nation's infrastructure crumbled and its people suffered due to extreme mismanagement, where we tend to imagine the alien keepers as hyper-competent, wise, and unified. But what if they are not? What if their civilization is just as messy and flawed as our own? What if the Earth Zoo is not a top-tier, well-funded project run by the best and brightest, but a forgotten, underfunded backwater project run by the galactic equivalent of bored, incompetent bureaucrats? This is the creepiness of mismanagement. The beings in charge of our fate might not be evil or clinical. They might just be bad at their jobs. A poorly managed zoo is a dangerous place. Cages can break, predators can get into the wrong enclosures, a new aggressive species, another alien race, could be accidentally introduced into our habitat. The keepers might try to fix the problem, but their bumbling efforts could make things worse. A UFO crash might not be a deliberate contact, but the result of a drunk joyrider or a poorly maintained vehicle. The keepers' attempts to clean up the mess would be clumsy, leading to the bizarre and contradictory evidence that characterizes so much of UFO lore. This scenario also introduces the possibility of internal conflict among the keepers. The zoo might not be run by a single, monolithic entity. It could be managed by a committee of different alien species, each with its own agenda. Maybe the Greys want to study our genetics, while the reptilians want to exploit our resources, and the Nordics want to protect us. Our planet could be the subject of a bitter bureaucratic turf war, and we are caught in the middle. The contradictory events in our history, periods of rapid progress followed by, dark ages, miracles, and disasters could be the result of one faction gaining the upper hand over another. This is creepy because it subjects us to the whims of a chaotic, unpredictable, and potentially incompetent power. It is one thing to be a lab rat in a well-run experiment. It is another thing entirely to be a lab rat in a lab where the scientists are constantly fighting, spilling chemicals, and forgetting to feed you. There is no plan, there is no grand purpose, there is just chaos filtered down to us from a higher level of reality. The mismanagement could also be financial. Maybe the Earth project is constantly having its budget cut. The high-tech monitoring sensors are failing and not being replaced. The team assigned to divert planet-killing asteroids has been downsized. We are one cosmic pothole away from extinction, not because anyone wants us dead, but because of austerity measures in a galactic government light years away. This is perhaps the most pathetic and insulting fate of all. To be wiped out by a meteor would be a random tragedy. To be deliberately exterminated would be a testament to our perceived threat. But to be wiped out because a low-level alien administrator failed to approve a maintenance request for the planetary defense grid, Sector 7G is a cosmic joke of the highest order. Our existence is fragile not because the universe is dangerous, but because our caretakers are incompetent. Number 2, the end of the observation is not guaranteed to be pleasant. In the 16th century, the Spanish conquest of the Aztec and Inca empires was swift and brutal. The arrival of a more technologically advanced civilization did not lead to a peaceful exchange of knowledge. It led to conquest, slavery, and the destruction of those civilizations, primarily through the introduction of European diseases to which the native populations had no immunity. When an uncontacted tribe, such as the Sentinelese of the Andaman Islands, is contacted by the outside world, the results are often disastrous. They are exposed to diseases for which they have no immunity, and their culture is often overwhelmed and destroyed. The goal of contact is often for the benefit of the outsiders, not the tribe. When a scientific study ends, the lab animals are often euthanized. They have served their purpose, and it is considered more humane or efficient to dispose of them than to care for them indefinitely. The zoo hypothesis has an implied endgame. What happens when the observation period is over? We tend to fantasize that this will be a moment of graduation. We will be welcomed into the galactic community given advanced technology, and all our problems will be solved. But based on our own history, contact between a technologically superior civilization and a less advanced one rarely goes well for the less advanced one. The end of our isolation could be the beginning of our end. There are several creepy possibilities for why the observation might end. One is that we succeed. We solve our problems, achieve a stable global civilization, and start venturing out into space. We are no longer an interesting, chaotic specimen. We have matured. The study is over. At this point, the keepers might reveal themselves, but they would not see us as equals. They would see us as a new, potentially useful and highly exploitable resource. A civilization that has successfully navigated its own atomic age without self-destructing is a rare and valuable thing. We might be promoted from zoo animal to work animal. Another possibility is that we become a threat. Our technology advances to the point where we can detect our keepers or even pose a danger to them or their neighbors. At this point, the non-interference directive would be void. They would not risk a potentially aggressive, unpredictable species like humanity getting loose in the galaxy. The end of the observation would be a preemptive strike, a cleanse. It would be swift, efficient, and final. They would not hate us. It would not be personal. It is just what you do when the tigers learn how to open their own cage. A third, and perhaps most likely, scenario is that we become boring. We do not destroy ourselves, but we do not achieve greatness either. We just stagnate. Our culture becomes repetitive. Our science hits a plateau. The keepers finish their study, write their dissertation on the rise and stagnation of a Class M planetary intelligence, and move on. The zoo is closed. What happens then? They might just leave us here, but turn off the protection. The quarantine is lifted, the do not disturb sign is taken down. Now the rest of the galaxy, which may not be as ethically minded as our first keepers, knows we are here. We are like a newly discovered, isolated island suddenly placed on all the shipping maps. We would be exposed to every predator, pirate, and colonizer in the cosmos. Our first contact might be with the galactic equivalent of the conquistadors. The end of the observation is not a moment to look forward to. It is a moment of extreme peril. As long as we are in the zoo, we are relatively safe. We are a protected species. But the moment the protected status is lifted, we are on our own in a galaxy that could be far more dangerous and predatory than we could possibly imagine. The Chinese science fiction author Cixin Liu's dark forest theory posits that the galaxy is like a dark forest and every civilization is a hunter hiding in the trees. To reveal your location is to invite your own destruction by other, more powerful hunters. The zoo hypothesis is our temporary shield from that forest. The end of the observation is the moment we are pushed out into the dark with a bright light shining on us. Number 1, we are fundamentally property. In the 1857 Dred Scott v. Sandford case, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that African Americans were not and could never be citizens of the United States. They were considered property. This decision denied them any legal rights or standing. Under most legal systems, animals are considered property. An owner can buy, sell, or euthanize their pet or livestock with only minimal restrictions related to animal cruelty. The relationship is one of ownership, not of shared rights. When a corporation patents a genetically modified organism like a strain of corn or a laboratory mouse, it legally owns that form of life. It can control its use, its reproduction, and its distribution. The organism itself has no rights. It is an invention, an asset. This is the ultimate, most fundamental reason why the zoo hypothesis is creepy. It is the logical conclusion of all the other points. If we are being observed without our consent, if our pain is part of the show, if we are being experimented on, managed, and culled, then it all points to one simple, terrifying truth: we are not a sovereign species. We are property. Our planet is not our own. It is the enclosure. Our species is not our own. It is the collection. All of our struggles for freedom, for self-determination, for human rights mode, they are all delusions taking place within a system where we have no ultimate rights at all. We are arguing over the rules for arranging the furniture inside a dollhouse that someone else owns. This changes everything. The concept of property is about control. The owner has the right to use, manage, and dispose of their property as they see fit. If we are property, then our keepers have the right to do anything they want to us. They can study us, change us, sell us, or destroy us. There is no ethical dilemma for them any more than a farmer has an ethical dilemma about harvesting his wheat. It is simply the owner exercising their right over their possession. This is the final crushing blow to human dignity. We are not just animals. We are not just a science experiment. We are a resource. It's an asset, a piece of inventory in a galactic collection. Our value is not intrinsic. It is determined by our owners. Perhaps they value us for our biodiversity. Perhaps they value our unique art and culture. Perhaps they value us as a source of genetic material. But whatever the reason, it is their valuation that matters, not our own. If we are property, then the concept of contact is meaningless. You do not make contact with your property. You use it. The end of the observation will not be a meeting of equals. It will be the owner coming to collect their possession. The future of humanity in this scenario is not in our hands. It depends entirely on the intentions of our owners. Are they benevolent collectors who wish to preserve us? Are they ruthless capitalists who wish to exploit us? Are they bored homeowners who are about to sell the house and get rid of the ant farm? We do not know. We have no way of knowing. This is the ultimate powerlessness. It is the realization that you are not the protagonist of your own story. You are not even a supporting character. You are a prop, a thing. All of human history, with its epic dramas of love, war, and discovery, is reduced to the scuttling of insects inside a jar. They might be fascinating insects, they might even be beautiful, but they are, and always will be, inside the jar, and the hand that holds the jar is not their own. The zoo hypothesis presents a universe where humanity is not just not special, but not even free in the most basic sense of the word. We are owned, And that is the creepiest thought of all.